Greetings, Guzzlers. I was going to get something, a wine that was appropriate for tonight. Couldn't be asked to go out, it's too bloody hot again. So we're making do with the Australian, which is a long way from where we're cooking tonight. Tonight, we're Greek again. We're doing another one of Akis's recipes. This is for his lamb kebab, giorgio or something, but the kebabs. Okay, I should warn you, his recipe may differ if you go and look it up on his website, on his YouTube channel, because what he says on his YouTube and what he says on his website are different. And so this is a little bit more towards what he did in the YouTube. And so tonight is Greek lamb kebabs with Greek Pitta Bread. We've made that before. But you've got to have Pitta Bread with your kebabs, haven't you? Cheers. So before we get going with the kebabs, because we need to make kebabs and marinate them, I want to start my Pitta Bread off because I want to get my yeast going. So I've got 160 mils of full fat milk. Well, because you don't have full fat milk in this house. But that's what it's going to be, right, for tonight, full fat milk. And then we're going to add, how much was it? 80 mils of warm water. And then a teaspoon of sugar. And you give that a little, it's a bit of a big one. Where's my little one gone? Oh, I don't know. It's in there somewhere. There it is. Come out here, you little shit. We just give that a little gentle mix. And then I've got 2 teaspoons of dried yeast. Okay, in that goes. And then we're going to set that aside for at least 10 minutes so it starts bubbling up. Okay, so let's get on with the kebabs. Now, like I said, if you look at his website, the recipe is different to, well, it's not different as such, it just includes a load of ingredients that when you actually watch a video you don't include. And I was going to go out and buy them, and in the end I thought I can't be arsed. Because I looked at the video and thought he never uses them. So anyway, you're going to need 500 grams of lamb mince, or if you're American, ground lamb. We're making lamb kebabs. Traditionally, lamb is what they'd use. You can have beef, you can have pork, you can have chicken. Some countries, obviously it depends on religious sort of prohibitions, if you like, what you can and can't have. These are Greek lamb ones. So I've got 500 grams of that, but before I get doing that, I want about half a bunch of parsley, and we just want to chop this up finely. We obviously want it as fine as we can because we don't want visible chunks of parsley. And this is also, while we're talking about chopping this up finely, in his recipe he talks about using 1 whole onion and 2 cloves of garlic. But when you watch the video, he uses dried garlic and dried onion. He also says in the recipe using dried thyme and fresh thyme. We've only got fresh thyme. Okay, so, and these quantities do seem to be different between the two. So this is what I'm doing, and I'll be posting up the recipe I've used, okay, which is based on his recipe but with the quantities I've used. Right, so That's done, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to transfer that into that bowl. I've got about 3 tablespoons of fresh thyme leaves there, and I've picked off as best I can just the leaves, just in case there's some bigger bits in there, as it were. We're just going to give that a little bit of a chop, and I'll chuck that in there with the parsley. Now he says it's quite, you know, sort of important that you get the right herbs and spices in the right quantities and everything. And don't deviate if you want to make genuine Greek kebabs. And then, like I say, promptly says one thing and then says something else. Anyway, that's the time. Now you're going to want some more time for the pita bread, but at the moment what we're going to do is just get the meat marinating. So I've said to you about kebab. We have sort of made kebabs before. We made his souvlaki, but these are made with minced meat, ground meat. Essentially, a kebab is a variety of sort of roasted meat, if you like, that's either in small chopped up bits or chopped up fine like this, usually on a skewer. Most are sort of quite popular with bread, hence we're doing it with bread. So my next thing is I'm just going to, because I don't want bits of garlic, if you like, I'm going to use my garlic crusher and just add that to that herb mix. Now I've moved on to chopping up the onion finally, and he says 1 onion in the recipe on the website. And like I said, in the YouTube channel he uses probably what looks like a couple of tablespoons of dried onion. So given the quantity I've got here from half an onion, I think I've saved that one for Ron. We are going to use onion for serving it, so it won't go to waste. So I'm just going to give this a final little mince up, if you like, because remember we've got to try and bind all this together. We're not adding egg or anything like that. We are just literally squeezing the meat and all this together. So the kebab, like I say, is a traditional thing. It's known throughout the Mediterranean and sort of the Near East, if you like. Different sort of places call it different countries, if you like, or cultures have slightly different names for it. For instance, in Greece, they wouldn't normally refer to it as a lamb kebab. That's sort of like the English name for it. Okay. Little bit of a dispute perhaps where it came from. You know, was it Greek? Just get my hands in it. But it seems to have originated back in medieval times, and it's to do with sort of Persia and the Anatolia regions, so it's not Turkish. Although you'd have to be careful about talking about Turkey when you're talking about Greek. Right, I'm going to transfer that into there. Actually, I might get me dough scraper for that, it makes life easier, doesn't it? Top me wine up, and then we've just got 2 spices to add and the meat and get it all mixing together. The first mention of sort of kebab, as it were, dates back to a Baghdadi cookbook in the 10th century, which talks about using sort of chopped up lumps of meat, if you like. But it appears that it doesn't actually appear. It appears it doesn't actually appear. I'm enough drinking. in English until about 17th century. But like I say, it is a sort of a dish that goes back a long, long time. Bit lost for words then. Not that exciting stuff, is it? Right, so I've got here half a teaspoon of hot paprika, and then, well, it's meant to be half a tablespoon of cumin, but that was the only cumin that I actually had. So that's what's going in there, and we're just going to now thoroughly mix that together, and in a minute I'm also going to season it with a little bit of pepper and salt, and also we're going to add some olive oil, and then we let it rest. Now, watching his YouTube, he says you need, you know, you want it to sort of marinade. You can do it overnight, but if you ain't got the time, don't worry about it, you can use it straight away. And then on his website recipe, he says it needs to marinate for a minimum of 6 hours. Well, this is going to have about an hour, because once this is done, we're going to make the pita bread, and that's an ancient bread. I think I told you that before. Let's see if you've been paying attention. And that's going to need like a 40-minute rest stage. So this is going to get a little bit of a marinade. But like I say, all we're going to do now is going to add a bit of salt and pepper, 4 tablespoons full of 4 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm going to mix all that together, cover it over with some wrap, and shove it in the fridge. Right, so pita bread time. A traditional round flatbread made from wheat, common in the Mediterranean. Loads of different versions. Some are known as pocket pittas, because when they're cooked, the steam that's generated at the high heat causes it to inflate, and then when it's removed from the heat, it collapses back down. But by that point, I suppose in a way, the inside's been cooked, so it doesn't seal back together again. So you've still got that pocket in there. Whether we'll achieve that is a different story. You do need quite high temperatures. So I've got 320 grams of bread flour, plain white bread flour. I've just added a teaspoon of chopped thyme. I'm now going to add a teaspoon of fine salt. And then over here we've got our milk, water and yeast mixture. And I'm going to add some olive oil to that. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons. Got to be careful here, I'm working 2 recipes at once, trying to make sure I don't give wrong quantities for the wrong one. 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Okay, we're going to need some of that later. And we're just going to mix that together, and then we just want to add this mixture gradually to make sure it's all mixed in together, and then we're going to want to knead it. Got a lump of yeast there. We're going to knead it for about 4 to 5 minutes. Now, I'm pretty sure this is exactly the same as I did when I made his souvlaki. Okay. I didn't realise, I was looking through thinking, it wasn't that long ago I did that. It was like 2 years ago, apparently. So, chuck the remainder of that in there. Get that in the sink for on. That's later on, Ron, not you, Ron. So just going to mix that together, and then I'm going to get my hands in there. And like I say, you want to knead it for about 4 to 5 minutes, and then we're going to let it rest in a warm place, covered over, for about 40 minutes or so, until it's roughly doubled in size. Here we are, about 45 minutes later. Dough's definitely risen. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of oil to my surface there. And we're just going to remove, I didn't bother oiling my bowl, I should have done really, shouldn't I? Might have made life a bit easier to get the bloody stuff out, but there you go, never mind. So this is going to make 6 pita breads, or should do. And what we're going to do is we're just going to, I've just oiled that so it's less sticky. I'm just going to divide that up into about 6. So now I've got a dry pan there. I don't know if I mentioned that before. That's my hex-clad Hairy Biker's saute pan. I haven't really tried it properly yet. I think I've used it. I don't know if I've actually used it in one of these, but as it were, YouTube ones. But what we're going to do now, last time I used a rolling pin. Oops. That one's a bit small. Wife probably say, I'll have that one. So what we do is we put it onto about a medium heat, and might need a little bit more oil down there. It's been a little bit sticky. So we're not oiling the pan. Okay, and rather than roll these out, I'm going to just do it by hand. I can't be asked to get a rolling pin out and make a lot more mess. Now, like I said, if you wanted the pocket pittas, which to be honest we're not that worried about whether we do or not, I think they're more sort of Arabic in a way. Then you need to make sure that the heat is high, okay, because you need to generate the steam on the inside. So, oops, that's got a hole, it's got a bit thin there, so I'm just going to cut that on there, and then we're going to cook that for about, I think it's about 2 to 3 minutes, or 1 to 2. I was looking at the kebab recipe. Don't think that pan's quite hot enough yet. Now, obviously, if you want them to look a bit more professional, roll them into a ball, use a rolling pin. But I can't be arsed. So I'm just stretching them out by hand. And like I say, we can cook them for about 1 or 2 minutes on each side, and then we're just going to put them somewhere to keep them warm. And when we come to actually cook with, eat them, or whatever, with the kebab, we will perhaps warm them up a little bit. But I said to you, the kebabs we're going to serve up with, now you can do it with just Greek yogurt or tzatziki. We're going to use tzatziki. I have made tzatziki before, told the wife just go and buy some. So she's bought tzatziki. So it's going to be served with tzatziki and onion. So I said to you earlier about the onion. We also want a little bit more chopped parsley, just for a little garnish. Now, if you're that kind of sick person, you'd also have bits of tomato, but we ain't having tomatoes, don't like tomatoes. So, I'm just going to cook these off. I've just realised I can't pick mine up because it'll slip out of my bloody hands. I'll have to have wash my hands. Right, so that's the last pita bread just cooking off there. So I've got that half onion plus another one, and I'm just going to quarter it. And then when that pita bread is done, we're just going to dry roast it, dry fry it in that pan. Not going to put any oil in there. And that will be the company. Like I said, if you're that weird kind of person who likes tomatoes, and quarter up some tomatoes, you don't cook them, you just put them on the plate. When he serves it up in his video, he lays out the flatbread, he lays the cooked kebabs on top, he puts the onions and tomatoes all on it and round it, and sprinkles it with the parsley and drizzles it with oil, and you eat it like that. We're going to do it slightly separately, mainly because the wife won't be too keen on everything drizzled in oil, and actually, to be honest, I don't want, if you're picking up my hands, I don't want everything covered in oil. I've done me Jamie bit. So, these haven't actually developed into your pocket pittas as such, but that's because of the heat. Commercially, they're cooked at 15 minutes at like 200 plus to get that pocket, but we're not that worried about that. I did actually end up making that one a little bit on the thick side. So, and also for some weird reason it's a bit thinner in the middle. So I'm just going to make sure that's cooked through, and then, like I say, I'm going to break those quarters up into their layers, chuck them in that pan, dry roast them for a few minutes. He says till they're brown off, but we'll see. And then we'll chop up the parsley while they're cooking. And the only other ingredient you might need is a little bit more olive oil, because we're going to cook our kebabs, and you might, well, all those olive oil in them, might just want a little smidgen of it just to stop it. Oh, excuse me, cups in. A little smidgen of it just to stop it actually catching in the pan. Right, so I've got the onion out, and I'll put that pan back on the heat, but this time I've whacked the heat up to high. We are going to add a little drizzle of oil in a minute. Oh, cling wrap, that one come off. And we just want to divide this up, a bit like the pita breads, into 6. So, and what we do is we roll them into like a sausage. Now you could do them on skewers if you wanted. He talks about doing them on skewers, but then in the video doesn't. So roll them into a sausage, and then flatten them slightly, and chuck them in the pan. So that was perhaps a bit on the small side, that one. Okay, so like I say, we're just going to roll it into a sausage, and then flatten it. You do sometimes see these Persian kebabs, I think they are. That are on like a flat metal skewer. So I suppose you might argue they're a little bit like that. I think I've got the quantities a bit mixed up. And I've got a bit of raw meat on the kettle base there. I'll get that up in a minute. And we're then just going to cook them. Obviously we want to make sure. Now part of the reason we're flattening them is to make sure that they are cooked all the way through. Obviously if you make them like a sausage, actually I think I might have got my quantities a bit wrong here. But by flattening them, it does at least mean that they should cook a bit more evenly. But as you can see here, whoops, I meant to oil that slightly and I forgot. Right, our kebab's just about done. My wine's just about done as well. So, I'm going to turn that heat down a minute. So I've got my tzatziki, I've got my onion, I've got my pita bread. So, let me just start with one. So add a little sprinkle of, huge sprinkle of chopped parsley, and a little bit of paprika. So we're going to take our Pitta bread. I'm going to take that whole kebab in this case. I'm going to add a couple of bits of onion, even though the Pitta bread I picked isn't exactly big enough. We're just going to add a little bit of that tzatziki, and let's have a go and make a more bloody mess. So that was just Pitta bread. I was going to warm the Pitta bread up, couldn't be arsed. That was Pitta bread, tzatziki and onion. And that was Pitta bread and kebab. You see the juices running out of the kebab out the back there. Very tasty, nice and moist. None of the flavours too overpowering. Nice and, well, spicy without being too spicy. A little bit messy, but that's the juices in there. Let me just flip these a minute. But there you go. Courtesy of old Akis, depending on which version you use. Is Greek lamb kebabs, served with homemade Greek Pitta bread, dry fried onions and tzatziki. Very, very nice.